Guys, it looks like that finally Putin is serious about that he is ready to talk, but the question is, can we trust him? Can we trust him after what he did to Prigozhin? Can we trust him after what he did to Navalny? Can we trust after all the promises he broke in the past? At the same time, a so-called buffer zone is proposed to be made in Ukraine. Ukraine has also received security guarantees from France and from the United Kingdom, but unfortunately there is a tremendous escalation in Avdiivka, with reportedly during the beginning of this war more than 400,000 Russian soldiers are already being eliminated. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. Yes, like you guys, some of you noticed, I have absolutely no idea how I'm gonna say ridiculous Russian propaganda every time. I guess this is what kinda makes it interesting. So yeah, today we have this Russian guy waiting probably for his shawarma or whatever, and he is wearing as what he thinks a Balenciaga jacket. But instead it is called, let me even read it, Balenciaga. So whenever this guy was buying it, it is either he did not know how to read, or maybe he was assuming that, it kinda looks similar, there are similar letters, so maybe nobody will notice. But you know what, guys? I sincerely think that this is not a genuine Balenciaga jacket. I think it's a fake one. But you know what is not fake? It is the Russian dude merch, very high quality stitching, nice to feel on the inside and outside, and we worked so hard with my wife to finally bring it to you guys. My personal favorites are obviously classic the Russian dude yellow hoodie, and also this incredibly cool iPhone case, which I'm personally using, as you can see, every single day. And just take a look at all these comments from all the people who got early access to the merch. Every single one of them is extremely excited and happy. And finally, I'm very excited to present you the official launch trailer of the very first batch of the Russian dude merch. Please enjoy. So yes, guys, the merch sales are now officially open. Please go ahead to my website, therussiandude.com, and don't forget that first 50 of you who get anything you want from the website will get a personal video message from me. But please hurry up, we already have several orders from the pre-release. Once again, also the link to the website is down below. Right, and now let's get back to Ukraine. And first of all, I'm gonna give you a quick update from the south, then I'm gonna switch our attention to the east, where there's a tremendous escalation in Avdiivka, and then I'm gonna talk about how and why Putin might use this as an excuse to start real talks. And first of all, right here is the video from the south, where Ukrainians recently did a raid at night, which resulted in capturing boats and ammunition plus weapons of Russians, and they did it with the help of their thermal imaging drones. Besides that, a Russian armored vehicle called Tiger has been attacked by one of the most newest Ukrainian drones, which resulted in the complete obliteration of the Russian military vehicle. Our next stop quickly brings us to Belgorod, where recently Russians put the entire helicopter Mi-24 in the air because there was a drone flying. And imagine the entire helicopter against this small drone. Surprisingly, or not, in case of the Russian army, the helicopter was not able to do anything. Our next stop brings us to the eastern front line, specifically to Liman front line, and next to Terny. As a result of one of the most recent assault attempts by Russians, Ukrainians were able to destroy 6 tanks. 4 of them are T-90Ms, the most modern ones, and 4 other infantry fighting vehicles. And potentially, right here is the video of the destruction of one of these T-90M tanks, so as you can see, it was relatively easy for Ukrainians, and yes, once again they used a simple drone. And as you go to Bakhmut front line, which yes, there are still combat activities every single day, along Khromovy, Ivanovsky, Klishivka and Avdiivka, Ukrainians were able to repel at least 10 assault attempts by Russians. But without a doubt, obviously the most significant combat activities are happening right now in Avdiivka, and just take a look at how the front line has been changing only in the last couple of days. And then right here, for example, is the compilation by the Deep State, which shows how the front line in Avdiivka was changing during the last entire year. And one of the primary targets for Russian attacks is the Avdiivka plant, which at some point was receiving more than 60 bombs every single day. I mean, this is just crazy how many attacks Russians did against one specific plot of land. And then right here, for example, is the satellite image which shows the condition of this factory, which at this point is pretty much non-existent. And believe it or not, in the basements of this plant there are still Ukrainian soldiers, along with some of the civilians. But obviously the Avdiivka plant is not the only place where Russians attack. At this point they attack pretty much across the entire city. And then, reportedly, in the last 2.5 days alone, since the arrival of 3rd Assault Brigade of Ukrainians, there has been reportedly a total of 250 bomb attacks of Russians against Avdiivka, which turned the city, which was already destroyed to the ground, into a complete just pile of rocks. Unfortunately, nothing else. It is also mentioned that at this very moment the main strategy of Russians is to try and encircle the remaining Ukrainians inside the city. And it has even been mentioned that at this very moment the dominance in numbers of Russian soldiers to Ukrainians is 7-1, and specifically, once again speaking about the 3rd Assault Brigade, they see there is 12 Russians for one representative of this brigade from the Ukrainian side. And it is estimated that at some points in Avdiivka front line, Russians were able to concentrate as little as 15,000 people, and Ukrainians were able so far to eliminate at least 4,200 of them. And some of the buildings where Ukrainians are still fighting, reportedly there are only, for example, 6 Ukrainian soldiers who are protecting their positions from hundreds of advancing Russians. Then it has even been mentioned by the representative of Ukrainian army, Rodion Kudryashov, that Ukrainians right now, unfortunately, at least in some parts of the city, are facing the encirclement. That is why they had to make the decision to retreat, to abandon these positions and take more advantageous ones. And unfortunately, according to Ukrainian commander Mr. Tarnavsky, some of Ukrainian soldiers during the retreat were captured by the Russian army. The representative of Ukrainian 3rd Assault Brigade, Alexander Bradin, even mentions that Avdiivka right now is far more complicated than Bakhmut several months ago. Which unfortunately does make sense, because the so-called presidential elections in Russia are happening next month and Putin needs this symbolic victory. I mean, it's not like he's not gonna win the elections. Win, quote unquote. But he needs this to emphasize his victory, so people will think that he actually won. And as you can see, even the Russian soldiers started posting these photos and videos from the inside of Avdiivka, where they install their flags in some parts of the city. But obviously, this huge escalation does come at a cost, primarily to the Russian side, because recently there is an so-called anniversary. Since the beginning of the war, Russians already lost, reportedly, more than 400,000 people. And according to the Vice President of the US, Kamala Harris, this is 5 times more than the Soviet Union lost in 10 years war against Afghanistan, and even far more people than they lost during both Chechen wars. And surprisingly, as a result of Russians potentially capturing Avdiivka, this, in fact, might force Putin to start talking. So let's talk about what I mean right now. And to begin with, we once again have to refer to the interview between Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin, which happened recently. But this time it is the statements which Tucker Carlson made later, and he was basically saying that after talking with Putin on and off camera, he is very convinced that Putin might do a compromise if it means ending war in Ukraine. And I'm not asking you guys to believe Tucker Carlson 100%. I know so many people have mixed emotion about this person. I'm just here reporting on the news, giving you the facts so you can make your own justified and educated decision. But what he basically means is that he saw during the interview that Putin was kind of very slightly hinting, implying that he is tired of this war, that he was not expecting it to be as severe as it is right now, and he is looking for the ways to end it. But unfortunately there is nothing much right now, but if there is a good opportunity, if Ukraine is ready to kind of follow the lead of Putin, Putin might be ready for some serious talks. It has even been mentioned previously that Putin, using his intermediaries, like Shoigu, Lavrov or other representatives of the Russian government, of the Russian military as well, he was using them to kinda initiate the talks with Ukraine through America, but all of this failed so far. And such as, for example, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, in one of his recent statements mentioned that Russia is ready to talk, taking into consideration current land which Ukraine and Russia has in their possession. Only in this case Russia might consider the talks. Basically what it means, Russia is not ready to give the land back. And whenever I was mentioning that Putin actually might be ready to talk after this potential victory in Avdiivka, this is exactly what I mean. Right now, let's be real guys, unfortunately, Russia is a little bit more dominant than Ukraine. It does not necessarily mean that Russia is going to win in this war. At this very stage, they're just pushing a little bit harder. And in case they potentially capture the entirety of Avdiivka, this will be a huge political, symbolic victory for Putin, especially in the face of upcoming so-called presidential elections. There is nothing much, there is no good news from the front lines has been in the recent several months. That is why Putin needs something good to give to his people. And this Avdiivka victory once again can be a perfect example. And after this, in case it happens, Putin might try to kinda cease fire or stop war at least temporarily, because Russia right now is kinda in the good condition, in the good state. They kinda won a significant battle recently, so maybe, just maybe, this could be one of the reasons why Putin might start talking. But at the same time, if you remember, Putin made several recent statements, also including the one in the Tucker Carlson interview, where he was saying that we started this war in Ukraine to end war. And personally, I find it very difficult to believe to a person making these ridiculous statements. And just in general, statistically, Putin is not very trustworthy person. Honestly, I think you can agree with me. And by the way, speaking about statistics, I just recently realized 47.7% of you guys are still not subscribed to my channel. So yes, now go ahead, you. I'm talking about you, specifically Alan, Alonso, Elijah, Amin, and of course, Anakin. It is time for you to subscribe to the channel, and guys, if you still haven't heard your name, feel free to subscribe as well, because eventually I will call you by your name as well. You can also follow me on Instagram to see how I live outside of YouTube and some other early access to future things. The link is down below. And now, let's talk about another extremely serious topic which happened recently, which is the death of the main opposition person in Russia, Alexei Navalny, who recently passed away in jail. He was sentenced to these unusual, unreal allegations as soon as he came back to Russia several years ago. At first he was given just like a couple of years, but the sentence was always being extended. He was being transported from one jail to another, and eventually he ended up literally in the Arctic Circle, as far as possible from everyone, as far as possible from the communication, from the civilization. And once again, unfortunately, recently, as a result of the so far official version, as a result of blood clot detaching, he passed away. The Russian side immediately said that the medical brigade was immediately called. They tried to resuscitate Navalny, but after 30 minutes it was completely pointless. There was not a single sign of life, so he was pronounced dead. But here we have a video which only was recorded 1-2 days before him passing away, and we can see Navalny is in absolutely perfect health. Even the press secretary of Putin, Dmitry Peskov, who was not talking about Navalny that much, immediately reacted, and he said that yes, we do know about the situation with Navalny, and Putin was also informed. But for example, some other ridiculous representatives of the Russian authorities, such as for example Vyacheslav Volodin, he said that it is the West, and specifically the Washington, who stays behind this elimination, because it is them who will benefit from the disappearance of Navalny, because they are the ones who want to retain all the power, who get all their hands on the gold, on the Russian gold, who want to justify support of Ukraine in this war, and for some reason, according to Volodin, this is why they had to eliminate Navalny. Many protests across Russia and also in different countries started, but unfortunately, specifically in St. Petersburg, these protests for Navalny were immediately stopped by the police. So even though he is no longer with us, Putin is still afraid of him. But unfortunately, guys, I just have to tell you, being Russian myself, I did not see much support and much grievance from the Russian side, as it could have been maybe a couple of years ago. So unfortunately, in this case, Putin was able to achieve at least partially his goal, to just take Navalny out of picture, make Russian people forget about him, make Russian people not care about him at all. So when the time is right, he'll just quietly eliminate him, and not that many people will care. And unfortunately, this is what happened. But it is not just Russians. Approximately in 2021, the president of the US, Joe Biden, he mentioned that in case Navalny is eliminated by Putin, Russia will have severe consequences. And well, Joe Biden did have a conference recently where he said that undeniably it is Putin behind this elimination, which is still very surprising. How can he remove people opposing him just like this in the broad daylight? And that is why he urged the supporters of Ukraine to keep supporting Ukraine, because they are fighting against the regime of Putin, who thinks that he is untouchable and who thinks that he can do whatever he wants. And ultimately, let's now once again talking about the very slim potential chance of talks between Russia and Ukraine in the near future, because even some Western representatives, such as the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orbán, another very complicated person, because they were making some interesting statements recently, which were kind of supporting the idea that yes, maybe some talks might happen in the near future. And first of all, what I mean by that is that Viktor Orbán proposed to make a so-called buffer zone in Ukraine, which will shield Europe from Russia. He also mentioned that back in 2008, Georgia and Ukraine could have been admitted to European Union and NATO, but right now this is out of the question, because right now this situation is very, very different. And just once again, just like with Tucker Carlson, I'm not, guys, are urging you to trust every single word Mr. Orbán is saying. Right here I am just presenting you the facts for you to make your own decision who to believe and who not. But nevertheless, recently France and Ukraine, they did sign security guarantees for Ukraine, which means that in 2024 alone, France is pledging 3 billion euros to the defense of Ukraine. And besides that, the United Kingdom is also pledging 2.5 billion British pounds in 2024 and 25 to Ukraine to also help them protect against the invasion of Russia. And well, there you have it. The tremendous escalation in Avdiivka, which most likely will serve as symbolic victory for Putin. And then this buffer zone in Ukraine, which obviously Russian propaganda will support this idea no matter what. Then there's a security guarantees from several countries, including France and the United Kingdom, to Ukraine. So we do have potentially some kind of stabilization of the situation after the Avdiivka battle, which hopefully Ukrainians will still be able to protect. But guys, we can never forget that we cannot trust Putin. There was so many times he said one thing and it was completely turned out to be false. We heard about the security guarantees, safety guarantees for Prigozhin. We all know what happened with him. We also heard about Putin saying, Why would we need to eliminate Navalny? I mean, we have a freedom of speech in Russia here, right? Look what happened once again, and several hundreds, I would say, times in the past when Putin lied to us. So even though it might feel like that the talks are coming, you can still never fully rely on them. But as always, please just let me know down below in the comments what do you think. I will continue to extensively cover the next several days and weeks of this rapidly developing situation, so if you don't want to miss these episodes, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Go ahead and please also check the brand new The Russian Dude merch, the link down below. Also please go ahead and check Patreon, where you can receive early access to uncensored episodes of The Russian Dude, and these two ways are the best ways to support my work. So thank you guys so much, and see you on Tuesday.